5 times in the last 5 days. I sat down, I got on Zoom, I went to a cafe, I met with a woman entrepreneur, whether she was a client or a friend, with the plan that we were going to talk about business. But in every single one of these conversations, at some point in the conversation, I ended up telling the woman across the table from me or across the Zoom from me my fractal goddess theory. And 5 times out of 5, she either cried in relief or took notes. I'm Tara-Nicholle Kirk. This is the Gospel According to Tara podcast on the A-List Substack. And I've learned that sometimes the story I'm telling in real life over and over and over again needs to be my content for that week. So I'm about to share my most radical take. The portal is now open. Let the transmission begin. Before the Council of Nicaea declared that Jesus was God, before Hammurabi's scribe chiseled the code on that made patriarchy the law, before all of that, there was a pre-patriarchal goddess. Different cultures called her different things, right? You've heard her called Gaia, the earth goddess, mother of all life. Net in the ancient Egyptian pantheon, mother of all, prime creatrix and prime destroyer. They said she unwove the earth all the way down to its most atomic electric threads. Every night, that's what nightfall was. So that she could weave it back again, braid it back again better the next day. You think you're a perfectionist. And then there was Inana, queen of heaven and earth. She was the one who got to appoint the kings. We're going to come back to her in a minute. Eventually, this idea of the capital T, the goddess eventually, I feel like that sounded like Megan Thee Stallion. The goddess eventually evolved into the patriarchal goddesses that they teach you about at school, the Roman goddesses, the Greek goddesses, right? Athena and Hera. But they edited the goddess down a lot in the process, all right? Before they had a chance to do that, though. The goddess knew, the big goddess, big G goddess, big T, big G, she knew that for the human story to play itself out, we would need things like railroads and air travel and all that stuff. And she knew that the linear-minded men were suited to these projects. But she also knew that if her power, her vast creative power, got into their hands, they might actually destroy the world, because they were very susceptible to fear and to power, to self-protection, to power plays. So she convened a council, the Council of the Goddess. She was the big goddess, but she had already begun to manifest herself into fractals, like emanations in the form of the goddesses of every culture. And that's who she convened to deal with the question of where to hide her divinity. Some of the fractal goddesses suggested that burying the goddess's divine nature in the earth. The big goddess said no, humans would just they could literally dig down to the center of the earth and discover it. Somebody else suggested the deepest oceans or hide it on the highest mountains. And she said, no, they would literally just dive deep or climb every mountain on earth, and they would find this divinity and they would wreak havoc with it. But eventually she had her own flash of insight. She said, I know exactly what we'll do. We will hide the divinity deep inside women. They'll never look there. And since that time, people, men and women, have combed every corner of the planet looking for something that a specific group of women, neurocomplex women, has hidden within. So, for decades, that's the end of the myth part of this. For decades, I love sacred jewelry. Jewelry would shred off of my body. Bronze bracelets would break. The gems and jewels would jump out of my rings and earrings. I've had, healers and teachers like meet with me and say, whoa, like you run so much energy through your body. I've had wild accidents. I had 14 fractures in like a year 10-year period of time. I had a steam room accident where boiling water and steam exploded all over me. I had second degree burns over 27% of my body. And then in about a 6-week period of time, the skin literally would regenerate and grow back before my eyes. Other people in my life were like, doesn't this seem like you're healing, like going from flesh to back really fast? And it did. For years, from childhood, I would just do superhuman shit or like see things that nobody else could see, which can get like boring and sad and isolating sometimes. But I would see things way before they were, not like I see dead people things, more like I would just see things happening before other people could tell that they were going to happen. And so for all of those decades, I really thought I was an alien. Or like we tell ourselves we're aliens, we're a little bit broken, something's a little bit wrong with us, we need to get our shit together. For decades, I've worked with women who come in, and one of the first things they say is like, I think I might be like a little bit psychic. The disorder and diagnosis model of ADHD, ASD, neurodivergence is telling us that we are divergent, that have a disorder, that we have a dis-ease even now. My job is to tell you that the opposite is true. You are divergent because you are a manifestation of the goddess. You're an emanation of the goddess. You are beyond perfect and whole and complete. And you are a creator. You came here with a sacred contract, with a trillion sacred contract line items of things you came here to be and do and learn and have and create and experience while you're here in this 3D meat suit. All right. So, what they call your neurodivergence, I love to borrow the term from Lindsay Mack, another Substacker and psychologist who calls it neurocomplexity. I love to call it evidence that the goddess is actually just trying to return. She's trying to remember the pieces, remember, like dismember, remember the pieces of who she is through the women with wild, untamed brains. There's this one psychologist, no, I think he's a psychiatrist, Dr. Edward Hallowell, who's, a very renowned expert on ADHD. And he says ADHD is like having a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes. I say it's like having a Ferrari brain. Well, I have ADHD first, but also all of the other components of neurocomplexity, including A-list, A+ giftedness, which is neurodivergent too, right? I say having ADHD or ADHD or, just being self-identified neurospicy, neurocomplex, neurodivergent as a woman, especially after about age 49, it's like having a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes, with shopping cart steering, with a Buick gas pedal, with an ignition that doesn't always come on when you want it to come on, right? So this kind of brain is actually adaptive. It's the kind of brain you got to have to help the goddess return and do what her priestesses came here to do in this season of humanity. We need these brains with these traits. But what's also true is that it can be very challenging to exist and be in this 3D body, in this 3D world, trying to do neurotypical, neuronormy 3D shit with this supernatural neurobiological equipment and a literal goddess destiny, goddess calling, goddess things trying to flow to you and through you. Now, I said we'd come back to Inanna. Let's come back to her briefly now because there is actually a roadmap for us. All right. So the ancient Sumerian myth myths are, I'm going to call this a myth, by which I mean the very true story of you and what's happening to you and in you and through you all the time. Joseph Campbell said that myths are things that never technically happened that are happening all the time. So Inanna's descent is an ancient Sumerian myth, and it provides us with a model, a story, a way to think about the deconditioning and purging of the patriarchy, unlearning, deconditioning that we as women, and especially as neurocomplex women, are destined to do in our, throughout our 40s, into our late 40s, and definitely like coming into our 50s and beyond. 50s and beyond is where we begin to sort of put the pieces back of ourselves. So let's talk about Inanna briefly. Queen of heaven and earth, possessed almost all the powers that a deity could possess. And one day I'll tell you the story of how she came to have them. But while she was earthside, she killed Gulgana. Gulgana was a bull. He represented conditioning. She was like, hard unsubscribe, Inanna out. Now, the plot twist was that Golgana was married to Inanna's sister. Some people even say her alter ego, right? Her sister was Ereshkigal. She was the queen of the underworld. So imagine Inanna is the queen of heaven and earth. Her sister Ereshkigal is the queen of the underworld, married to Golgana. Inanna kills Golgana and decides that she's going to go down to Ereshkigal's house, to the underworld, to help her grieve and mourn. Now, some of us would say this is a fool's errand. Inanna was a little bit of a power tripper, let's be real. But she was also the queen of heaven and earth, and so she was highly, highly intelligent. And she did something before she went down that saved her entire bacon. She told her most beloved servant, I'm going to the underworld. I'm going to be gone for 3 days. She said, I'm going to the underworld. If I don't come back in 3 days, send somebody to come get me. Okay. So Inanna proceeds to the entrance to the underworld, talks to her sister's servant to ask for passage. The servant talks to Ereshkigal, who's like, she can come down if she wants to, but she knows that you don't get to come back. She knows the rules. You come to the underworld, you don't get to come back. And her sister, Ereshkigal, says, at every gate, you need to have her surrender, take off, disrobe one me, M-E. The me's were her accoutrement, the pieces of jewelry and clothing, the regalia that Inanna and everyone believed were the source of all of her powers. There were 7 items of regalia that she had on. And at every gate of the underworld, Ereshkigal's servant required her to take off one piece of jewelry, one crown, a breastplate, her robe, right? Whatever it was at each level. The very thing she thought gave her her power. It's probably why she thought she could go into the underworld, because she came, suited and booted, for real. So, but at every gate, she has to take something off. And when she gets to the bottom, she is completely naked. There's no external trappings. There's none of the stuff she's always held on to and clothed herself in and armored herself with to give her power. It's just her, naked, before her sister, the queen of the underworld, who proceeds immediately to kill her. Not only does she kill her, she tells her own servants to take her carcass and hang it on a meat hook on the wall and let her rot. And she hung there, rotting flesh on the meat hook for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, her trusty servant arranges it so that someone comes down to get her. And I'll tell you much more about that story some other time. But someone comes back to get her. Someone comes down to get her, brings her back to life, pours into her. They said she received 60 times the amount of food of life and water of life that that would bring a mere mortal back to life. 60 times. She's nourished, she's nourished, she's nourished, she's nourished, brought back to life, and then reascends and at every level takes back some of her powers. All right. Now, historically, what happened was the goddess Inanna was fashioned and formed into the goddess Ishtar, Easter, aka Isis. But in the Isis version of the story, the patriarchy has already crept in. Because Isis doesn't go out and collect her own powers back. Isis goes out and to collect on this interminable, never-ending search for her husband Osiris's body parts and collects them back. All right. So I just want to kind of plant that seed that a lot of the stories we were told about these goddesses were not necessarily the original version of the story, and that if we look pre-patriarchally, we can find the real story, and we can get food and water of life out of them. The thing is, Inanna's descent is this big of a story. Inanna's ascent, the way it's told in the myth, is about this big of a story, So we know that she ascended in the myth, but we don't really know what her ascent or her return from that meat hook moment looked like in detail. All we know is that she was stripped naked down to her true self, without any of the things she thought gave her power, without any like jewelry or freaking Claude skills or whatever, and she reclaimed them. And my argument is that that's what I told these 5 women in these 5 conversations over the last 5 days, is that is what's happening right now for you and for me. So many of you are listening to this because you've had a meat hook moment. You've had 7, you already had all 7 of the, disabling power yanked away, what you thought you had, what you thought made you, what you thought gave you power is now gone. Maybe you've already had 7 of those moments. Maybe you're in your meat hook moment, hanging like a rotting carcass on the wall right now. In any event, what I know is that neurocomplex women, after about age 48, 49, what they call the Chiron return in astrology or human design, there are some neurobiological conditions that allow us and cause us and propel us to naturally unlearn our loyalty to the patriarchy that was conditioned into us for generations. All right. And along the way, what I observe is that so many of us on this journey of life as a neurocomplex woman with a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes and shopping cart steering and Buick gas pedal, so many of us have this super strong desire, this like burning desire within us to build businesses, to build brands, to build books, to build worlds. What I call A-list women, women who are neurodivergent, um, including giftedness, because it looks a lot like giftedness looks a lot like the other neurodivergences. You know, if you're gifted in school when you're a kid, you get put in a special class too, right? Sometimes it's hard for you to get that giftedness started up. Um, Women on the A-list women are 300% as likely as a neurotypical woman to become an entrepreneur. Even though we hate the idea of consistency, we hate the idea of routine, we hate a lot, and because it feels like, um, I saw a Laura Young, a Substacker and like ADHD coach or creator, talking about that feeling of task paralysis being the feeling, it's like the same task paralysis is being dominated by the same parts of your brain that prevent you from chewing your own arm off. It is that immovable. It is that heavy. It is that hard to make it happen. We have that, and we still want to become entrepreneurs because we are priestesses of the goddess, because these transmissions are trying to come through us, and because books and brands and businesses and platforms and, you know, all of that content, those are the models, the tools that we know, that we've been taught for how to allow the transmissions to come through. But that's also why the business bros and business Barbies, their logical linear way of like building businesses just is never going to work for you. That's why the whole business coaching industries like dumping modules at people. So we are very overrepresented in the world of women in business, neurocomplex women and women over, you know, midlife women are overrepresented in the audience for, in the marketplace for, and the customer base for the business coaching and business course industry. And none of that shit they're doing is working for us because the way that they be and the way that they operate and the way that they teach does not work for the goddess brain. That's why I guarantee you, I'm not one of these that loves to hate the bros or Barbies. I'm just not. Like, because of my business background, I can tell you that often some of them are actually out here sharing solid strategies. But you, neurocomplex woman over 50, fractal of the goddess, with your goddess Ferrari brain, you can do every freaking thing that Alex Hormozy does, and it ain't gonna work for you. Because what's in alignment for Alex Hormozy and his destiny is not in alignment for you. That's why you trying to do what they do and like manage your mindset and setting huge money goals and all of that the roadmaps, all that stuff is just not working. Even though you somehow were able to do that for your employers at your old day jobs or in school, you know, you might still be doing that in a day job now. But that's why when you sit down to do what they tell you to do, you can literally feel the capitalist patriarchy Kool-Aid draining out of your bloodstream every time you sit down and try to do the things you quote unquote know you're supposed to do. The things you see people way less intelligent, way less deep than you out here doing every day to build and grow your whatever career, books, brands, businesses. It's not going to work for you because you're not here to be a cog in the patriarchy machine. You're not here to build a business cog in the pain point agitation industrial complex that they call business, you know, online business. You're literally a priestess. You are a fractal of the cosmic great goddess, the queen of heaven and earth. You came here to be an oracle and for all that is. Your most radical deep insights and takes are her vast cosmic life force electric energy being channeled and transmitted through you to whoever needs the field to be shifted in that moment. Okay. But we've been for years, decades, years and decades in this life, and for generations across many lifetimes, we've been plugged into the machine. We've been harnessed, had our life force energy extracted. We've been taught and conditioned on penalty of literal death not to let it out, right? And then our brains like do this procrastivity thing, this addiction to hard mode thing, which so you end up keeping your very most electric, revolutionary, bold, dangerous ideas in your head like a violent sneeze that you hold in, and it's scrambling the fuck out of your brain and your mind and your spirit. So what you came here to create is not getting created. Meanwhile, you're busy all the time doing stuff that's honestly like a shadow of what you came here to do. It's like trying to drive the Ferrari, the goddess Ferrari brain in the fucking slow lane. It's never gonna, that engine ain't never gonna open up if you're trying to drive at 40 miles an hour to do the pain point solution shit that they're telling you to do. It just isn't gonna work. Every single time you delay dating, letting your most radical take come out of your mind and your body, every time you delay, you learn. Every time you avoid it because it's uncomfortable, you wire in the learning and the conditioning of avoidance. Every time you delay, you wire in delay. Okay? But and we do, why do we do this? We do this out of the fear of loss. The fear of loss. Actually, my queen wound theory is another theory for another day. My queen wound theory says we do this out of an epigenetic, transferred genetically through the generations fear of being beheaded, being imprisoned, losing the empire you've got. This is what they do to queens. They have done to queens historically. We do this out of the fear of losing the comfort, the felt safety of invisibility. But the cost of us doing this, of us keeping this greatness in our minds and heads and bodies, it costs us everything. Half of the women on these 5 calls in 5 days are ill. Some of them are ill all the time because that's what happens when you're not transmitting what's trying to come through you. It just scrambles your fucking cells. It costs you your destiny. It costs you your birthright creations. It costs you that exhilaration and electricity of being like so alive that you feel when you be and do and have and learn and create and experience what's been trying to come through you for decades, right? When it's bottled up within you, this creative power you have will scramble your signals. It will scramble your brains. It will deplete your life force energy. It will leave you in the state I have heard many times over my many years in the transformation business, women saying, I feel like I'm smiling like a superwoman on the outside, crying on the inside. Now, what I also know is that it does feel dangerous to be radical, right? It does. You may not even want this as your destiny. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be a little rough with you because I'm 50. So I'm like, I ain't got time to be like mincing words. As long as you are living in the shadows of what you came here to do, you're creating shadow businesses, shadow careers, shadow relationships, shadow ways of being, it's not ever gonna thrive. You being in the shadows will continue to take you down where it took Inana to that meat hook moment where you are so disabled, often in illness. I call it the stillness of illness. I call it that from experience. You are so disabled from doing your old superhuman shit that you've been doing to compensate. It's literally what they say about uh, women at menopause. Menopausal women, when the estrogen declines, they lose the quote unquote ability to compensate or mask their ADHD the way that they've been doing it for a lifetime. The other thing is we lose the fucks to give about doing that. We no longer want to. All right. And it's at that moment when you no longer want to compensate the same way, when you no longer want to wear the mask to hide the fact that you're right about shit basically all the time, and you're tired of telling people asking you for your opinion and you giving it to them and then them ignoring you and then coming back, however many months or years later being like, yeah, you were right. I know. I absolutely freaking know. Right. So I say, especially if when you're 50, when that estrogen cliff happens, when you're surrendered to who you really are and to that the illness of stillness, the illness of I can't do hard mode anymore. I don't have it. I can't cortisol my way to do the things I used to do anymore. That's when your ascent begins. That's when your ascent begins. That's when you come back up through the gates. You get to start reclaiming your powers, but you're no longer armoring or shielding or like crutching yourself. Now it's just like you already know you are true you getting new, getting extra powers back on top of the true you. So part of my radical take, and I'm here to share with you today, is that particularly for women over 50, the diagnosis and disorder model of ADHD is wildly incomplete. Do you have deficits in dopamine that prevent you from doing some of the things you're trying to get yourself to do? Absolutely. But the goddess Ferrari brain is real. And you know what? It's not as controllable as a normie brain is. Because if it was, then you could be controlled. The reason you think you might be a little psychic is because you are literally a fractal of the big goddess. What they want to call you're a fractal of the goddess, and you are a priestess for what's trying to come through in this season. What the disorder and diagnosis model calls your traits or symptoms, I call your divinity. Of course, you have time blindness. You have existed for 10,000 years. You see across timelines. One of the women I talked with this weekend, as we were talking, she was like, I have learned that I come from the future. Yes, you are 10,000 years old and you come from the future. Of course, you have rejection sensitivity that causes marketing paralysis, because that is the epigenetic wound of the queens who came before you, who were beheaded and imprisoned and dispossessed of their lands. Of course, you have dopamine deficiency for doing boring, repetitive ass shit, because you didn't come here to swing the hammer. And of course, you have a wild, wonderful level capacity for hyper focus, for superhuman powers of creation or getting what you want when it's a topic or a project that you are deeply interested in, because that's how the Queen of Heaven creates. That's how the goddess creates. Actually, let's talk about that for a minute. How God, if you're a Bible person, you know that God creates with let there be light, and then there's light. The book says that God, saw all the primordial chaos and hovered over it, right? And created light and all of the beings through that. That's not how the goddess creates. That's not how the goddess creates. She creates through cycles of destruction before creation. Like net, unweaving the world down to its threads so that there's space and materials to create it better the next time. Like Inana, shedding all of these things that she thought were powers, hanging and rotting on the meat hook, letting that small ego conditioned self, not self, die, so that the real, true, full powered self can come back to life and ascend again. The goddess creates through cycles, through rhythms, through spirals. The goddess does not hover over the chaos. The goddess can create through the chaos, in the chaos, via the chaos. All right. So, of course, you can't rush or track or judge yourself on fucking spreadsheets because you are a goddess. You are not a fast food restaurant. All right. So, I created the A list for A list women to ennoble us, to come directly against the diagnosis and disorder model, and to ennoble our Ferrari goddess brains, minds, bodies, spirits, to empower us, meaning to take our powers back, to put all of the parts of us back together. We're not just superwomen who can save anybody else in a crisis but can't do our own biggest dreams, right? No, we are taking it all back. We're bringing it all back together. We're remembering who we really are. By remember, I mean the opposite of dismember. And I created the A list to enrich us. And I mean rich in every way. I even mean financially, right? We're going to work a lot with archetypes here. We're going to start with Queen, Goddess, and Oracle. These are wealthy archetypes, okay? They were not nuns who took a vow of poverty. That was not no goddess shit. They served the benefit of all whilst draped in regalia and gold and gems, the precious materials of our earth. The priestesses of the goddess were fully unrepressed. So they were prolific in what they spoke. The oracle was prolific. She was unrepressed. The priestesses of the goddess were, and they were also well paid. They were wealthy. All right. So we're going to do, we know that, the myth of Inanna didn't have a lot of detail about the ascent, but we're going to do our ascent together here on the A list. We are going to ascend together into our prolific paid priestess ness, our prolific paid priestess era. And again, the A list is for women who are either, self-identify in any way, whether they're diagnosed or not, as ASD, ADHD, ADHD, women who were A students. There's a lot of eldest daughter core vibe here, right? Like A students, women who are high achieving or ambitious, because gifted, you're going to hear me say this a million times, gifted is neurodivergent too. Neurocomplexity is often comorbid with autoimmune conditions, anxiety, and the unlock for many of us will be our own most audacious audacity, audacious takes, audacious insights, audacious vision, seeing, knowing. So what are we doing here? What is our goal for this experience together? It's to help you. I'm here to help you remember who you really are. I'm here to help you remember who the fuck you really are. Okay? I'm here to help you we're all doing this together. I mean, I'm 50 and 1/2 years old. We are here to reconnect us with our power. We are here to step into our prolific paid priestess era. We are here to purge the patriarchy from ourselves and radically unrepress what's trying to come through us. And we're doing that because when we let the first, we are the emanations of the goddess, and what's trying to come through us are also emanations of the goddess. We have to stop holding that in. And the way that I stopped doing that many years ago was by writing my bold, beautiful, radical, shocking, dangerous ideas every damn day. I'm not saying publishing them every day. I'm not saying publishing them ever. Some of you may not be here to publish, a daily, weekly, whatever podcast, Substack, any of that. But the practice for your inner infrastructure of allowing those radical ideas to come out will change your world. It will build your world for you to have that practice of windshield wiping your mind and your inner pipeline and getting that wide open to receive what's trying to come through you and to you every day. All right. So we're going to write big and bold and beautiful and dangerous ideas every day in a ritual practice. All right. What are we going to cover on the A list? we're gonna, I mean, the one thing I wanted to touch on here is are we gonna talk about business? um, sure, we're gonna talk about business because I love business. Business is one of my arts, it's one of my like ministries probably. Um, it's a tool for us, but this is not a place to center business. Are we going to talk about men or love? Sure. This is not a place to center men. We are not here to talk about business Barbie things. We are here to talk about goddess things. We are here to redefine success as knowing our true selves. I mean, every part of our true selves, what we like, dislike, love, hate, can do, can't do, dream about, desire, are called to do. Knowing our true selves, loving our true selves, valuing them, allowing ourselves to be who we really are. Attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection. These are the A's of self-love from one of my old teachers, Dave Rico. We are here to offer those things to ourselves and to all of the parts of ourselves as we learn about them. All right. Self-valuing is a core principle of being a self-centered woman, which is my methodology or modality. And self-valuing is what gives you fuller access to that Ferrari goddess brain, right? It's what gets your steering to be a little more under your control. Your bicycle brakes kind of start working a little better. The ignition is less sluggish. And it's not less sluggish because you do some affirmations of self-love and then you go out and try to keep forcing yourself to do stuff that somebody told you you need to do. No, this is about creating a self-valuing architecture for your life where you in valuing your Ferrari goddess brain and identity, you only put in on and around it the setting and people and places and things and input that allows it to unfurl into the fullness of what it already is. It gives it what it needs to thrive in that environment, right? Okay, so I think of A-list women as needing some more A's. We need full access to the deepest, most electric parts of ourselves. And we get there through self valuing and self centered ways of life, ways of being. When I say self centered, I mean that in the sexiest possible way. I'll tell you more in another episode. We need self authorization. We do this ascension not through navel gazing and thinking about it and talking about our moms and dads. We do that through our being called, through calling forth our own divinity and greatness through our goals and our projects and our dreams and our desires. So access, authorization, actualization. This is about learning your own neurobiology, learning your own congruence codes, which are a series of self-discovery tools I will offer you, including human design and my personal proprietary take on human design, which is dual lens, tropical entry sidereal human design. Um, Archetypes. Actually, probably the most powerful technology I know for breaking the pull of our cog conditioning, our patriarchal patterns, are the archetypes: queen, oracle, goddess, lover, great mother, warrior. Um, and then assets. Every A-list woman needs assets, not ours, right? We have a resistance to ease, I notice, in A-list women. This is where I love Emma Grede, but she just gave a podcast interview that was all over the place this morning before I recorded. And I was like, nah, girl, it ain't supposed to be that hard. Like, we have a resistance to ease that was conditioned into us that has kept our careers and businesses and lives and relationships on hard mode because we have been rewarded since we were one for doing exhausting, depleting, hard things that are out of alignment for us and doing them on our own. Okay. And so sometimes not sometimes, always, the brilliant things that you do or think or say or see or know that are so easy and obvious to you, that give you so much dopamine, it's not even hard to be consistent. You just do them or think about them or talk about them all the time. You're not used to building your life or your business there, right? Because it feels too easy to be work or to qualify as a business or qualify as a project that's worthy of doing. But I'm going to tell you now, and I'm going to say it forever here on the A list, if it takes a ton of prep or is super depleting to you to do not build your life or your business around it. I want you to invite you into a realm where you are a priestess. Whatever feels like breath and life to you, whatever you can get up. My 8-year-old is learning the lyrics to 9 to 5. Whatever you can get up and like tumble out of bed and stumble into the kitchen and just do it. It just is like that. There are 8 billion damn people on this planet. Somebody wants it. Somebody wants it. Okay. So I come against the lie of patriarchy and toxic capitalism that says it has to be hard for it to make money or be good. Nah, we're not doing that no more. And then my last A for now, I mean, I would say audacity maybe belongs on this list too, right? We need audacity. One of my besties, Keisha Mitchell, has been talking about this for years because A-list women are often out in front of everybody else by some years. So you're like trying to tell everybody what to do, and then years later, you hear every other, author or coach or whoever, influencer talking about the thing you've been saying for years. Keisha's like that with audacity. She's been talking about audacity she's been living audacity for years. So I would put audacity on this list of tools in our toolbox that we're going to talk about. And AI and automations, like agents, all of that, we need those things. We on the A list need those things and can leverage those things to wild, wonderful effect for us and for our families and for our lives in ways that are not available to people who know how to use the AIs but do not have the vision that you do. Right? Okay, so I have a beautiful, electric vision for the A list, but I'm going to start really small and I'm going to start with declaring this vision and this goal. I want the A list to become my milestone that I'm focused on right now. I want the A list to become the absolute favorite, most beloved Substack of 111 A-list women. I want to do it in the ways that give me dopamine. And I want to do it in total radical congruence with my own true sacred self. Oh, and I'm going to do it. I want to do it in public, transparently. So you can join me. So you can like learn what I learn along the process and step into your own prolific paid priestess era. Okay. But I'm going to tell you this, you got to pick yourself first. You're going to have to put yourself on the A list, and you're going to have to sort of lock in, buckle up, ascent to the adventure of knowing all the parts of yourself, falling so deeply, recklessly in love with all the parts of yourself that you are no longer willing to participate in the things that are inconsistent with or incompatible with all of who you be. You're going to have to ascend to the adventure of learning the ways of self-mastery. And I'm not talking about just dopamine farming or like do what like the methods for getting your brain to do what you want it to do. I'm talking about the spiritual ways of self-mastery, the archetypal ways of self-mastery, the psychological ways of self-mastery, and the neurobiological ways of self-mastery. And when I say self-mastery, I don't mean like your brain, the supremacy of the brain or mind dominating the rest of who you are. I mean mastery like a maestro, like a conductor. I want you to start to think of all of these different parts and facets and lenses and fractals within you as a constellation of parts that you can learn and practice how to skillfully orchestrate. You can learn how to access these different parts of you and flow them to the projects that you care about. All right. And you're gonna have to you gotta allow the alignment butterfly effect that takes place once you commit to your own highest good to fucking destroy and eliminate everything that's not in alignment. You're gonna have to let that, people feel like the world is really chaotic right now, and in some ways it is, but chaos is simply energies reorganizing themselves. It has to happen, all right? So what I want you to leave knowing is that, we're gonna do a lot of work early on, play early on with the Queen, Oracle, Goddess archetypes, and the Queen, Oracle, and Goddess wounds. All right, and queens they have killed. The Oracle they disempowered and destroyed her temples, and we will work with these wounds. But Goddess is very different because there is a deeper magic to Goddess. There's a deeper rule to Goddess archetypally, and it's like this. Only the Goddess herself can deactivate her powers. And she can only do it temporarily. Okay, you can't kill a goddess. Can't. This self deactivation, self repression, I have seen for years as my 30-year problem. That's what I call the thing that I get excited about working on for 30 years. The greatest oppressive force of genius on this planet is not actually oppression, it is internalized self repression. The internalized self repression of women is the number one most repressive force on the planet. This is what we do through learned avoidance, codependency, saving everyone else in a crisis. When we self-silence our insights and takes, and stop speaking and writing and saying or following what we see and what we know, that self-divorcing, self-silencing, self-abandonment is the number one oppressive force on this planet. And again, I'm not saying I'm going to ask you to publish everything you write. I'm actually the opposite is true. I'm not going to say that you got to have a New York Times best-selling book and publish your most radical take tomorrow, but I am saying that you have to stop censoring yourself. And the way you begin to do that, the ritual for reversing repression is a daily writing practice. So, in a couple of days, I'm going to share more detail on my intentions for the A list and what I'm doing in this season, what I'm creating in this season in a post. But I want you to know that if you feel that frustration of keeping from the potential gap from knowing there's something that wants to be created through you but feeling like it's trapped within, if you feel like, oh my god, am I going to die before I'm able to create what I came to create, that's a signal that says it's time for you. This is like the goddess inside saying you must remember who you are. You must unrepress it. You must let it come through you. You must create. You must write fire, to quote Audre Lorde. You must follow that golden thread of what you write every day in your own journal, your own private writing practice to create whatever you came here for. Okay. And I have a way, I'm going to help you begin to do that. I am going to take my own writing practice that I've done myself for almost 19 years, that I've been teaching to other people for 10. And I'm going to offer a 7-day writing challenge that I call Write Fire. It's 7 days of no self censorship and writing. I'll give you prompts and I'll give you some guidance for how to do it unprompted. And it's just you and your journal. This is not a thing about where I'm going to ask you to publish anything. If spirit moves you to publish something, go for it. If you know that you want to be writing more for your business or your brand or your visibility or work or whatever, go for it. But this is not about that necessarily. This is about building that unrepressing daily ritual of just shackles off full self-expression with my guidance and with community. All right. This is about opening up that inner pipeline that might be clenched and closing up or frozen and feel hard because of years of you self-silencing or self-abandoning. It's really a vibe. It's really like the windshield wiper for your soul, is I think how Julia Cameron talked about morning pages. So over the years, I've had like 50,000 women participate in my writing challenges. And I will just tell you, it's an experience not to miss. The expansion energy is on high. We're going to start this challenge Monday, April 27th on the ALIS Substack. It's tarakirk.substack.com. I'll link it everywhere you could be watching this. And just to know, yes, it's Monday, April 27th. That's a day or two after Uranus enters Gemini. I think it's 2 days after Uranus enters Gemini. So we are doing this right fire challenge in the grand opening days of a 7-year revolution in communication and writing and how ideas travel, how transmissions travel. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, because I just want you, I know this is so beneficial to you because I've done it myself, it's changed my life and it's changed so many lives of the women in my writing challenges. I'm gonna create a free trial for my Substack. This challenge is going to live in the paid tier of my Substack. We're going to do this challenge every month because I write every day wherever I am in the world, um, for myself, for my practice, my ritual, not necessarily for work. Um, so what I'm going to do is make the paid tier free for 14 days. For 14 days. So for the rest of this week, I'm going to be just sharing some of what I'm writing and what's coming through in my own personal right fire challenge. And then next week, starting on April 27th, I'm going to prompt and guide you through your right fire challenge. All right. So we're going to do it together. Fractals of the goddess coming together, remembering who we really are, opening up that inner pipeline, remembering why we're really here. All right. That's what we're here to do. I love you. I'll see you in the challenge. The portal is now closed.